I'm on a quest to read every Star Wars novel ever written, because, oh no, the Yuuzhan Vong have arrived. That's right, it's NJO time, and I've broken out my dark and edgy robes just for the occasion. I have begun reading through the entire 19-book saga as started with Vector Prime by R.A. Salvatore in 1999. In this book, the New Republic is at a time of relative peace. They've made a treaty with the Imperial Remnant, there are no major aggressors that they're aware of, and things are going pretty well until they aren't. Some mysterious things start happening, a research station is sabotaged, a moon seems to be crashing down to the planet Cernpedal, and it is the charge of Luke Skywalker and his new Jedi Order to figure out just what is going on, as they start to feel the effects of an invading extragalactic species called the Yuuzhan Vong. Now, it's almost impossible to talk about this book in a vacuum, because it is the starting point for this massive saga. Its role is really setting up the dominoes that will eventually start coming down. It needs to introduce you to this whole new species, this new societal structure. It needs to introduce you to much of the new Jedi Order. After all, while some characters in the new Jedi Order we already are familiar with, people like Kip Duran, Corran Horn, Jacen Jaina, and Anakin Solo, the children of Han and Leia, there are also plenty of new ones, such as Worth Skitter and Ganner Rysode. There are also Jedi who, have been named briefly but haven't really done anything and are gonna go on to do things. This is setting up a lot of building blocks that will eventually come to fruition in later things. Not necessarily all of those things, I'm just referencing non-specific details. Anyways, the plot of this book is mostly mystery-focused. It is Luke and Leia and the gang trying to figure out what's going on. Why are there several crises happening all at the same time? They're investigating the seeds of what the audience is slowly being told is the extragalactic invasion of this race of conquerors, the Yuuzhan Vong. Now, one thing I liked about this book is that while it's a mystery for the characters, it's not really a mystery for the audience. You are immediately clued into what's going on, and so you get to watch your characters unravel this mystery as opposed to trying to figure it out for yourself. I think that's a good way of avoiding people setting expectations for what was going to be happening, if there was going to be any particular link between those things, and instead just saying, no, these are pieces of the slowly unvolving plan that the Vong have, but they aren't, necessarily linked items. You're immediately introduced to a Yuuzhan Vong named Nom Anor, who is going to be a major part of the upcoming books. You can see his hideously ugly mug here on the cover, and through him you get a look into the society of these aliens. And I suppose this is the book that I'll use to talk about. I still don't like them. For clarity, as I record this, I'm several books into the New Jedi Order at this point. I wanted to get a couple of them done so I can record in bulk, and even as I get into it, there are elements that I like of the Yuuzhan Vong. I like sort of their commitment to the cause. I like that it's a fanatical theocracy. I think that that's cool, but he's just so ugly. They're so hideously ugly, and their religion is dedicated to making them uglier, and it's just unpleasant. Every time that the book slows down to talk about someone's self-mutilations and how devoted they are, it just takes me out of it. I have to step back and just, ugh, alright. I can only imagine if this was a movie as opposed to a book. If I had to look at these things for the entire runtime of a film, I don't know that I'd buy a ticket. They just needed to be toned down a little, is all I'm saying. And it's especially frustrating because, so far, I've liked many of the Yuuzhan Vong characters, particularly in this one. I mentioned Nom Anor. I think he's really cool, and I'm excited to see how he continues to evolve in the Yuuzhan Vong's power structure. I also really like Yeoman Carr, who is working for a research station on the edge of the galaxy, and is sort of intentionally planted there to be, he's the guy who says, look, what could that be, as the Yuuzhan Vong track in from over here. He's there to deflect suspicion and to make sure that nobody notices things until they are ready to be noticed, which doesn't entirely work out, but it works well enough, and he's a very fun character. I like him. Now, this is also the first non-kids book to have a real big focus on Jacen, Jaina, and Anakin Solo, and I have to say, I really like all three of them right from the start. I think Jacen and Jaina especially are very charming. Anakin, my biggest note is that it's a very depressing storyline for him throughout the whole New Jedi Order, but especially in this book. It's mostly just about him not getting along with his dad, which is rough to read for the entire runtime of the novel. And now, while I typically don't get into spoilers on this page, I think I'm going to have to talk about the rest of this book. There's one spoiler in particular that's very famous about Vector Prime, so if you haven't read it, or if you're interested in reading it, tune out now, because this is going to be a big one, and it's very relevant to Anakin's story. Chewie's death is such a blow. I'm not against killing characters, especially major characters. I've talked about in my version of the sequels, I would have probably killed Luke movie 1. But Chewie, I think, is a mistake, and I know why they did it. For those who aren't familiar, out of universe, when they were planning out the New Jedi Order, they wanted to kill Luke. I had thought for the longest time it was Han, but as I've been researching, the series, as I've been reading it, I learned that no, it was Luke that they wanted to kill off to show, like, okay, we mean business, this is a serious threat, but George wouldn't let them. Lucas still had it in his mind that he was eventually going to do his sequels, and he didn't want to contradict things so dramatically in the EU, so he said you can't kill off any of the main 3. What he did allow them to do was kill Chewie, and so they accepted the next most major character, and I don't think it works. Not that it's a bad scene in this. Salvatore does a good job conveying it, but it's such a, Chewie in particular, he's the family dog, and he's their uncle. He is a comforting presence throughout the entire saga, and while I can appreciate the effect of that comfort being ripped away, I don't think it is worth the cost. I think it just adds such a downer note to the entire series from here on. I think it would be better to keep Chewie alive and to kill one of the characters who are actually, they have agency. They are choosing to thrust themselves into these conflicts. Chewie's just following Han. It's rough to say that he gets the bad end of the stick on this. That said, again, I do think that Salvatore does the scene justice, which I can't necessarily say about everything in this book. I've never read many books by Salvatore, but he's a prolific sci-fi author. He's worked across several series, and I don't know. There were just a lot of moments in this that I kind of thought, a different author could have done that better. I think there are different ways that a scene or a moment could have been put across that would make it land more effectively than what's in here, which is often just kind of plainly stating things. And now, I'm glad that I made a spoiler warning earlier, but I want to make another one because I cannot talk about this book without talking about the ending. See, for the most part, I enjoyed Vector Prime quite a bit, but then I got to the end. It's awful. And I can sort of forgive that because it's not really the ending of anything. This is book 1 of 19. It's just the end of the prologue, if anything. But the climax of this book is just terrible. I don't know what they were doing. I barely understood what was going on. The plan that our heroes had was strange and conveyed poorly, and I barely grasped, I think they melted the ice of this planet to a degree that it destroyed the planet, apparently. They refer to it as destroyed. I don't think that just means that the ocean levels rose. They didn't do global warming here. They said it was destroyed. And I feel like that implies to me a much grander level of destruction. But unfortunately, that's not even the end of it, because the way that that happens and the way that it's conveyed is so frustrating. Let me read you a section. Hang on, I need full finger control for this. So they bring in these ships, and they heat the surface of the planet, and then let me just read a couple of lines here. Before they could even begin to call out to Jaina, though, the planet seemed to grow fuzzy and distorted, as if they were looking at it through a glass globe. "The Mezzocanli wave," Anakin squealed. "The fourth state of matter. It's got to be freezing below it." What the hell does that mean? That's not something that's brought up anywhere else in this book, and I had to look it up to make sure that my own scientific knowledge wasn't just not up to snuff. The Mezzocanli wave doesn't exist. Fourth state of matter? What are you talking about? For the record, there is a fourth state of matter, but it's just plasma, and we know about that. Maybe we didn't in 1999, I don't know. But if you're gonna introduce a fourth state of matter in this book, you need to set it up before a single line of dialogue at the ending. For clarity, that's not referenced anywhere else in the novel. It's not referenced anywhere else in the Star Wars series. It only exists to be something weird Anakin said here, and I don't know why. I don't get it. This was such an unbelievably frustrating and strange ending, and especially after so much had happened in the book, I was just like, what on earth was that? No one warned me. This is such a popular series. Everyone talks about the good parts and the bad part. No one ever said, hey, the ending of Vector Prime is terrible. And again, it's not like it even slowed me down, because the next book was by a different author. It was different events happening. It's not like this was vital information. Whatever happened to this planet didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. But still, it's just so frustrating. It will forever taint what was otherwise a pretty good book. I liked Vector Prime a lot up until the last like 20 pages. But those 20 pages are why I'm only gonna give it a 5 out of 10. It's good, not terrible. I know my grading system is a little harsher than most people think of that as like American test scores, so they think of it as an F, but it just means it's like, it's okay, but there's a lot of missed opportunities. Especially because I know there is so much better to come, and I cannot wait to dive into the next one.